Most of the companies have some sort of program in place that revolves around this. I tried to like look on a bunch of different websites to kind of see. I wasn't going to get into the details because I don't want to say something that's wrong. But there are some insurance companies when you go on their websites that don't have any mention of this whatsoever. So different insurance companies are handling this differently. Some of it might have to do with their rates before. Some of it may have to do with their financial security, their philosophy, whether they're publicly owned or mutual. And it's just part of the competitive landscape. Okay, so I made myself a checklist. But the thing that I would do is I would kind of break it down. I'm trying to think about you. That kind of gives you the background about COVID and insurance. Would be if you're sitting there and you're thinking to yourself, well, what's my insurance company doing? And will I get a benefit from this? And when will that take place? The answer to that is as simple as pick up the phone and call them. They would be able to let you know how this might affect you positively. I don't think it's going to last forever. I mean, I think that the world will go back to normal. So we're cautioning people that if their premium, Randy, if your premium goes down, it's not going to last forever. It'll just go wherever it's going to go. But, and this is something I'm trying to focus on with my customers. Randy, this can be yours, and other people on the screen know who you are. This can be yours. Anytime your premium goes down, you're going to be in a situation of thinking to yourself, what do I do with that? Do I save it or do I use it? And one of my basic philosophy is that there's a huge risk of having a really bad day if you have a car accident, and I'm talking about a serious one, and you're learning after the fact what your insurance was. There's big risk in that. We will call our customers, and a vast majority of the time when we say, hey, look, we want to go over what you have here, they will say no, because I think they lead with the assumption we're just trying to sell them something. And hey, I'm in sales. I don't make any bulls about that, but we are trying to cover people. So when your premium, I'm going to give you two examples of things that you can think about for your own personal situation where if you do experience a premium decrease, and I'm going to use $20 a month as an example on two things that maybe you should consider doing in this moment. One is, and I do this frequently, I'm going to look at my notes while I do it, is I want you to imagine that you're in a car insurance accident and you are at fault. That's always an innocent thing. Nobody means for it to happen, but it obviously happens. And you injure another person. This is a real story. The other person's leg is broken and they have to have surgery. And the other person has a $200,000 medical bill. I'm going to judge this by watching your reaction. Raise your hand if you want your insurance to cover that. So the question is, what are your liability limits? I'm not going to ask you to raise or not raise your hands. But if you're sitting there going, I'm not sure, now is a great moment to take a look at this. So let me give you an example using me. I have two cars. It's just Tina and me. I have no kids. I have no tickets. I have no accidents. If I take my insurance policy and I look at what would my insurance policy cost with a $100,000 limit. Now remember, I just told you about a $200,000 bill. There's a whole lot of people that are running around with a $100,000 limit, and honestly, lower than that. The state minimum is only $30,000 for that, and you're allowed to drive a car. If I have to have a $100,000 limit as compared to adjusting my limits and buying something called a personal liability umbrella policy, I can change my car insurance's price, including the umbrella policy, from a $100,000 limit for a $1,250,000 limit, which I think would make you feel more comfortable about that car accident. And the difference in cost is $20 a month for me. It's very, very inexpensive to fix that. And if you're watching this video and you don't have a personal liability umbrella policy, every single one of you need it. I think every human being needs it, regardless of whether you're wealthy or not. Another example I'll give you, and this kind of connects two dots, because we've had a lot of people during this, people suddenly understand they're mortal. What if gosh, people are dying as a result of COVID. Do I need more life insurance? So kind of as a simple example, a 40-year-old, a 30-year-old can, with State Farm, can get $50,000 worth of insurance for $20 a month. Most people think it's going to be $100, but that's on people's brains anyway. And then, so all I would tell you is that in this particular moment, if you're experiencing a decrease in your premium, you have a choice. Hey, I'm going to save it, or, gosh, maybe this is a good time for me to look at my insurance policy. And so I would really encourage all of you to contact your agent, ask these questions, take a look at your coverages. And, and of course, being a little self-serving here, if you can't get that where you are, I'm more than happy to help you with it.
John Tarn had a good question, John, and that is insurance regulated by the government or is it a third party?
All 50 states do have an insurance commissioner, an insurance department. And so insurance is regulated at the state level. Not every state is the same. There's a lot of things that are in common from one state to the next, but they're not all exactly the same. So the insurance commissioner in any given state is going to regulate the basic rules under which the insurance companies have to operate. If a customer has a complaint and they complain to the Department of Insurance, the Department of Insurance has the authority to communicate with the company and resolve that, which may or may not be to the customer's request. So all of the insurance companies operate under that particular umbrella. North Carolina in addition to insurance commissioner, has another mechanism called the Rate Bureau. Right. I could spend a whole hour talking about that, or even longer. That has to do with how rates are regulated. Different opinions from different insurance companies and agents on whether that's a good or bad thing. But that's the way North Carolina has always been. So we are regulated, but not by the federal government. We're regulated at the state level. Well, there are things we're regulated federally. I mean, basically, you just don't break the law anywhere, and you're good.
Well, and also, because I know Barbara Blood's on the line as well, and she works for Aflac, and we're going to talk to her in a minute, and that is, you are regulated in addition, because you guys are licensed, right?
Yes.
By the state?
We're licensed by the state. So for me and all of my employees are all fully licensed. So you have an education piece. That you have a pre-licensing education piece. Then you have a state examination that might be similar to, say, a real estate exam in terms of its level of effort and difficulty in passing. And then after that, you have continuing education requirements you have to meet.
Yeah, if you have an insurance agent that can't produce their license, just like a hairdresser, a barber, an engineer, an architect, I mean, there are lots of regulated industries out there. Joe had a good question here this morning. There's been a lot of discussion, John, he says, about people that own firearms that may need additional liability insurance. Does an umbrella policy cover firearms liability?
All right, so I'm going to answer that question. And I would encourage any of you that own a firearm, if this is a burning question for you, I'm going to give you my answer, but you would want to make sure you talk to your own insurance carrier to make sure that don't just rely on my answer here, because that's obviously a big liability. So I'm going to break it down to this way: if you have a firearm, I'm going to give you examples rather than talking generics. Let's say you have a firearm and you're cleaning the firearm or something, it's a very innocent situation. It's loaded and it accidentally discharges and strikes another person. Now, if you shoot yourself, I'm talking about liability, so I'm assuming somebody else gets hurt. If you injure yourself, then none of this applies. If it's accidental, my answer is yes. technically the way an umbrella works is an umbrella supplements your homeowner's insurance. The answer to that question really is in the homeowner's insurance policy, not in the umbrella policy. The umbrella policy will add additional things, like there's some coverages for slander and libel and situations like that. There are some weird situations with golf carts where umbrellas can apply where your homeowners may not. You know, gosh, if you have a golf cart, I could do a whole nother class about golf carts around Mount Airy. People driving them down the street to get to the golf course, and it's like, time out, you have no idea what's going on. I see that all the time. It just makes me go, oh. The homeowner's policy really is where that starts, and then if the homeowner's policy applies, then the umbrella will supplement it. An umbrella is a supplementary policy, and so if you were to take a gun or anything, and you intentionally injure somebody else, intentional acts are going to be excluded under, well, pretty much every insurance policy on earth. It's based on covering accidents. But as you can imagine, in an environment like right now where you're seeing all these weird stories, don't get yourself in any weird stories. The question about firearms and accidentally hurting someone with a firearm is a great question. Talking about what if I total up 3 Rolls Royces, that can happen. The most likely place you're going to get in a liability situation is in your car. It's going to happen in your car. And like, I gave you an example of, what if you cause a $200,000 medical bill? The medical bill is not all you would owe. You owe any lost time from work. You owe another, it's called general damages, or more commonly referred to as pain and suffering, which is an undetermined amount of money. But in an even more tragic scenario, if you accidentally get in a car accident and another person doesn't survive, lawyers are really good at taking out a calculator and figuring up if this person had 20 more years to live and they're making $50,000 a year, that's $1 million. That's just for the lost income.
Right.
And, they don't need to have a Rolls Royce,
right,
for you to suddenly owe a very large amount of money. So, in theory, no matter how much your coverage is, I can give you an example where you need more. But the goal of any insurance policy, not only for the victim and their family, but also for you, is to get the claim resolved without going to court. And the more money you have available, the more you reduce that possibility. So I know premiums are important, but everybody should from time to time review their policies and make sure that they have what they need.